I'm Adam Park, an architect associate working out of the Sheffield studio of BDP. I also have a background in academic research, looking specifically at homes and neighbourhoods for older people and how those environments can promote people's well-being. So we know that globally the population is ageing, but there are some specific trends in the UK that we've been looking at. Most important of which perhaps is the fact that in the oldest age groups, so those over 85 and over 90, those age groups are set to double by 2050. That's going to mean a lot more people potentially requiring care, a lot more single person households, significant increases in social isolation. Traditionally, there's been a kind of tendency for people to move out and away from urban centres as they grow older, as they have families and their lifestyles change. However, we know that as people get a bit older, they tend to become that much more reliant on their local environment, perhaps less dependent on cars as they maybe stop driving. So there are a number of benefits, we believe, for kind of reimagining town centres and urban centres as kind of age-friendly hubs and communities that could support not just new types of residential for older people, but younger people and families as well. Obviously, that can't be developed in isolation, so our framework also looks at the concept of the age-friendly neighbourhood. So what kind of amenities, employment opportunities, green space might be needed to be developed. Town centres already tend to be social hubs. They tend to be places where there is access to transport links, train stations, maybe healthcare hospitals. So what else might be needed to support the kind of range of residential uses? And we've looked at things such as reintroducing green space, green streets, quiet zones, and kind of more sensitive approach to how vehicles might be parked and stored. There are a number of ways in which housing developers can benefit from the BDP Age-friendly Living framework, whether that's private developers, local authorities, or affordable housing providers. And much of this development we feel is likely to come forward perhaps in partnerships, so joint ventures between different types of providers. The main way that developers can benefit from this framework is probably in that kind of sort of stepping back and considering alternative types of sites to perhaps the ones that have been considered before. We know that town centres are becoming a more attractive location for development for older people within kind of some of the wealthier market towns, but we see that approach being able to be spread much more far and wide, considering alternative sites that perhaps haven't been considered attractive for residential before, but changing conditions and the need to regenerate town and urban centres is really kind of placing a new focus and emphasis on that. Well, we know already there's lots out there on this. There's lots of really great research and policy and guidance on age-friendly housing, particularly the HAPPY series of reports. But this is a fresh look. It's a really critical moment, we feel, in terms of kind of post-COVID crisis and the ageing population kind of coming together. There's that big trend that I mentioned around the kind of over 85 and over 90 groups, and thinking really about what's going to happen over the next 2-3 decades to our towns and cities, and how this approach of multi-generational communities in sustainable locations can contribute to addressing some of those other impending crises.